Hello, welcome to the Joel Fleischman Happy Hour podcast, episode number 79, I believe, correct?
79, yep.
I'm here today. Oh, cheers, by the way. Cheers. I have given up drinking for Lent, and this will be a Campbell Sport Cream root beer from the Blue Door coffee shop that we own, Stinson. And Adam's Adam's drinking the Drexel horse medicine.
Private label, good taste.
Central Waters Brewery here in Wisconsin. Adam Beck is our merchant, and in our world, a merchant means a buyer for our commodity materials. We've got with us Stinson Dean today. Welcome, Stinson.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me. I don't have a beer because, like I said earlier before we hopped on, I got to go work some heavy machinery. But I do have my 4-year-old's kitty cup in front of me. So, cheers.
Congratulations? Question mark.
Yeah, that's right.
At least it's not a sippy cup, I guess.
Yeah, I took the lid off, so we're good.
The reason we have Stinson Dean on today is the only person I follow on Twitter, which his name is backwards. I can't believe your name is not Dean Stinson, but until about a half an hour ago, I did think your name was Dean Stinson, and he just transposed it on Twitter. So
yeah.
Where's the name Stinson come from?
You wouldn't be the first to make that mistake.
I'm sure.
It happens often enough. If I send an email from my laptop and it has my full signature on there, it designates Stinson first name, Dean last name. It's just very common. And it's a last name in my family tree from Alabama, and they turned it into my first name, and I've been fighting the good fight ever since.
Perfect. So why is Stinson on here today? From my perspective, you don't even know this, Stinson. I believe I was following Mike Clark. There's very few, in my opinion, I haven't seen many. In our industry, there's very few people using Twitter, unfortunately.
True.
Industries, right? I can get tons of intel. We can have lots of relationships, lots of quick contacts, fun stuff, different stuff, get to know each other. In our industry, it seems antiquated, which is no surprise to anybody in our industry. You're one of the few people I follow that is into the lumber market. I believe I started following you based on Mike Clark, maybe something you commented on him, or maybe you were follow someone similar. You literally have 16,000 likes or followers. 16.2.
Yeah, a lumber guy. It's very bizarre.
I'm way more popular than you, and I have 340 followers. Probably because I'm constantly posting about Debbie football players. But regardless.
Yeah, the key to Twitter is niche, and I was I've been tweeting about lumber since 2014, and it just so happened in 2021 it became like the canary in the coal mine for everything that was coming our way economically and inflation. So it just kind of blew up because a lot of journalists are on there, and I was tweeting somewhat intelligent things about lumber and why and what might happen next, and before you know it, everyone's a lumber expert. So it was a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, I appreciate your follow. You are a fly fisherman, a family man, you Chiefs fan, and you tweet that occasionally, but you also throw some interesting stuff out there with the lumber market. So you're a good follow, people. Go follow Stinson Dean. Give us a little podcast bio since we don't know you.
Sure. Yeah. And, Twitter these days, lumber Twitter specifically, there's a good little community. There's probably a few hundred.
Lumber Twitter. That sounds like lumber porn or something really weird.
Yeah. Well, there's
talk about niche.
Yeah. There's financial Twitter. There's real estate Twitter, politics. And then there's a little corner lumber Twitter. And there's
like 5 people that I probably don't follow or companies. I'm always looking for lumber Twitters and I can't find them.
Well, they're
who do you like?
His username is 2x4 Caster. Dustin Jalbert is on there. He's a random links economist. 2x47, like a play on 24/7, is Ashley Beckholt. Mike Clark's a great account. There's a lot of equity guys on there that invest in the publicly traded sawmill producers and then the publicly traded lumber yard.
I lose those guys. Like them guys, I can't get into them. It's like 2 steps away from me.
Yeah, but they're an interesting follow because they're tracking like the bean counters and what's motivating them and what they're investing in and what the risk tolerance, blah, blah, blah. It kind of helps inform like a more macro view of lumber, which isn't utilized as much. I find lumber traders are very day-to-day focused and what's the market doing today? And they act accordingly. They go to bed, they wake up, what's the market doing today? And they do that over and over. Where Twitter has allowed me, I think, to follow kind of more broader powers at play in our marketplace. And you get a feel for what are the equities doing and why are they doing it and what is management saying? And you can kind of get more 90-day quarterly outlooks, which kind of take a step back from the market and helps you position yourself versus kind of waking up every day. But to answer your question, go ahead.
No, I don't even know what my question was, so go ahead and answer it.
Your question was, who the hell are you and why are you here?
That's we're still on that, aren't we?
Yeah. So I own Deacon Lumber Company. I'm a lumber wholesaler. I buy lumber from sawmills. I specialize in putting it on the ground and reloads and warehouses and waiting for the market, local markets that need a fill-in truck. My
primarily out of the Missouri area, or are you doing this across the country?
It's across the country, but my main focus is kind of that Sun Belt from the Carolinas through Arizona.
Okay.
I got lumber in Dallas and Phoenix and Atlanta and Washington, D.C., Florida, and kind of cover that. And
the more populated markets.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing about it is where I'm positioned, I make money, I do well when logistics are all gummed up. So rails getting, polar vortex is slowing down the rail lines, and weather is hitting the railroads, and the truck direct market's gummed up because there's not enough truckers, and rail speeds are down, and the sawmills are backlogged, and they can't get the wood out the door. Well, I have wood positioned geographically where you could call me and you can get it in a couple days. Lately, that hadn't been a problem. It's been pretty boring. A lot of turmoil and logistics, and everyone's been able to get lumber pretty quickly. If you look at the lumber or the rail speeds for the CN, the miles per day, rail miles per day that rail cars are traveling, it's the fastest in 3 years. And then the only reason I don't know if it's any faster before that is because I don't know how to get the data prior than 3 years ago. But rail is moving at lightning speed. There's wood everywhere. The mills are shipping. We don't have a trucker shortage. So guys like me, it's been tougher to find a niche in the market. But in short, I'm a reloader and wholesaler of 2x4s and 2x6 commodity lumber.
Right. I'm a huge restaurant analogy guy. So you're the local grocery store when Cisco's didn't show up at the door and you're out of green beans, right? Go down and get the grocery store, buy all the green beans you can from this guy, get them to our shelf, get them to our kitchen.
Yeah. And it's, and I think it's a good model. The nuance is, we're going to buy in rail cars and buy bulk and then sell in truckloads. And there's a little bit of a, convenience spread that you're making there, but we're taking risk and putting lumber on the ground or cutting a PO and holding it on our books for 90 days. So there's a substantial amount of time to market and your exposure to market that you got to navigate with futures prices and buying right. So in 90 days, it's profitable.
Risky as that.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of us who do it anymore because it's become more volatile, more risky, and folks would rather back-to-back a rolling car or buy it and try to sell it by the end of the day kind of thing. And there's a lot of competition. It's a very efficient market in that space. So I just don't play there. I'd rather take a position and hold it for 90 plus days. In half of that time, I don't actually own the lumber. I just have the PO on, and it takes 2 weeks to get it loaded on the car and 3 weeks to get it to Dallas. And then I can actually sell it. But
and for people that don't understand the market, you could actually sell it while the wheels were on the ground, right? I mean, I'm sure you have.
Yeah, yes. And a lot of folks, that's their whole business model. They're a roller. And I just am not good at that. The reason I bought it is because I think it's going to be 15% higher in 3 months.
Right.
And I'd rather hold, and I don't do as much volume as a back-to-back guy.
You're a one-man show. You work out of your house. You're like a lumber day trader, if like for general terms.
Yeah, I'll take that. There's several of us and trade assistants, but largely, I couldn't tell you guys the first thing about what lumber is used for, or how it's made, or what the tree looks like. I just know what it costs.
Yeah, you're like the old. What was that movie where they were doing pork rinds? Eddie Murphy. Trading Places.
Trading Places, yeah.
Orange apple.
Yeah, right. Like they didn't know pork rinds. They're like, it's gonna go up, it's gonna go down.
Yeah.
But you specialize in your market. You know what you're doing. How did you, again, for the 14-year-old girls watching this and is like, that's what I want to do when I grow up, Mom. How did you get into the market? How did you ever figure this out? Like, because who the hell gets into this thing?
Yeah, seriously, it's super niche. I have a degree in journalism, and I built.
That's your 16,000 Twitter followers. I have a degree in English, and I'm stuck on 300 followers. What the hell?
You gotta be sensationalist to get the clicks. That's how it works.
But I'm just literally sensationalist about Devi football players that no one gives a shit about.
Yeah, I mean, lumber's been so boring. I've been tweeting about everything else. The volatility's gone and the whole deal. But that ability to communicate, journalism certainly isn't a prerequisite. But how I got into it was I started at a company called FC Stone, which now goes by Stone X. They're futures commission merchant that is a consultant to commodity companies all up and down the supply chain, all commodities. And I started trading grain, wheat, and beans for grain elevators in Kansas. And I quickly moved into lumber because the grain markets were very sophisticated, very mature and developed. And I kept hearing these lumber brokers next to me on the trade floor explaining the most basic stuff to their lumber clients. Like, this is how futures work, and this is the basis, and you should buy it when it's low and sell it when it's high. And I was looking at them like, you have to explain the stuff. Like, oh yeah, these folks they're like very new to hedging and risk management and futures. And, everyone just, the mentality is, why would I hedge if it's going to go higher? And it's like, well, yeah. Well, why are you like working for somebody if you know it's going to go higher, kind of thing? So I moved to the lumber desk and I started writing a commentary similar to you guys putting out the content and folks kind of communicating your outlook on the market. I wrote a weekly commentary, taking what I felt was overly complex and trying to make it very simple, and writing about the markets from a futures broker's perspective. Because I was seeing order flow from the biggest sawmills to all the way down to home builders and everyone in between, to see how they were positioning themselves. So I had this great view on the market. So I was able to bring a perspective that latched on and gained a little bit of a following. And eventually, instead of consulting, I decided folks in lumber are a little too hard-headed for a consultant. So I decided just to do it myself. And that's how it became.
So similar to Random Lengths, when that was the go-to, right? The printed Random Lengths, but it was your spin on it, right? And not quite as deep, not as quite as. There was a thing called the Random Lengths Journal, green and black and white, that was like the Bible. Is that still around?
Oh, yeah.
It was like the Bible of the trading, right? It would be like a fisherman's report for fishing.
That's a great analogy. The fisherman's report. What are the flows?
It came out like on a Monday morning at 8.
It's all past 10.
Oh, right? Well, and it's all still just one person's perspective. I mean, it really isn't the Bible of whatever. But my dad read that. I mean, it's dropped like at 8 or 9 in the morning on a Monday. Everybody in the country at one point lived off that thing, I think, primarily. It was really the Bible. But you kind of took a spin on that, I assume, right? And in more niche, not the whole. That was every market. That was from 2x10s to 2x12s to AC plywood, whatever.
You'll still, on Friday mornings, you'll still get a snippet for every one of those markets. And where I think Random Lengths has been, people rely less on that write-up is the market is centralized. The people are going and getting their own information. They're talking directly to the mill. They're talking directly to the home builder and everyone in between. And there's not as many individual mom and pop players anymore. So it's just easier to kind of connect. If there's 5 sellers and 5 buyers in our country, across the country, who dominate, the offer comes from 5 mills and the bid comes from 3 lumber yards. Like, that's who dictates our market.
These these big giant elephants in the room, right?
Yeah.
We're just playing on the fringes.
And that's why you guys probably are similar if you're able to efficiently navigate the fringes, because that's a very inefficient market to just have these huge elephants staring at each other with this big gap. If you're able to kind of step in between and position yourself and be the bid when the sellers want to sell, and they can kind of sell to you instead of playing their hand to the bigger guys, you can do really well. But what it causes is huge volatility as one group decides to throw in the towel and rush up to meet the offer, or vice versa. The whole market like explodes either direction. And it used to not be that way. It used to be there was Drexel, and there was XYZ Lumberyard, and there was XYZ Mill, and mom and pop, independently owned. So there's hundreds of offers and hundreds of bids. And a guy like me in my position could make hundreds of phone calls to find someone who was sleeping. Like, oh, this mill doesn't know the prices are up, and oh, this lumberyard doesn't know the prices are down. And
it was fairly easy.
Yes,
right? People and a lot of lumberyards just called when they needed stuff.
Yep.
But it was also, my dad was very good at it, but also back then it was fairly repeatable and seasonal. So again, it was such a simple market, and so many people didn't understand it. It was actually an easy poker game to play, or the simple Vegas game to play. Lumber goes down in lumber goes down. My dad would be like, lumber goes down in the winter because like literally people don't have the cash and they just drain it out and they panic into spring. So before the spring panic, we buy. So my dad would buy almost, maybe this time of year, he would wait as long as he could. And then he would buy as much as the bank and really my mom would let him. And then he would load the barn. And it would be really cool for us too. Then we would quote all of our summer stuff based on my dad's good buy. And it was actually a great marketing thing too. We could go to our local builders when we were small and saying, hey, Albert Fleischman is the king of buying. He bought in February. Look where we bought it. Look at Random Lengths. We're taking a small profit. We're passing a lot of that on to you. And that was the truth. That's what my dad did. Yep. Fairly simple, literally almost worked like clockwork. Now it goes up for no reason at all and goes down for no reason, seemingly no reason at all.
Yeah, the seasonals have been tough. And I was taught if you bought over the holidays and you had the wherewithal to hold it until spring,
right?
Like you do okay.
It was like a no-brainer. Everyone's off during the holidays. Mills are still making lumber, right? If you think about it, guys in Canada, they're out snowmobiling, they're ice fishing, whatever, but they're still making fucking lumber, right? So they're making a shit ton of lumber, but everybody across the country is sleeping. What buyer wants to do $1 million PO on December 23rd? You buy then, sit on it till May when everybody's freaking out and needs to buy shit, and it'll work every time. Like it's like going to Vegas and you have like the formula until it doesn't work.
Well, here's what's interesting about that. I learned to trade from grain traders, corn, wheat, and beans. And what you just described is the same as the harvest cycle. And
good way to say it.
It's you're either planting or growing or harvesting, and folks are buying after harvest, blah, blah, blah. And is the harvest big enough to meet the bid? Is there leftover from prior crop that can meet the bid? And I'm a little out of practice. It's been 9 years, but I took that same philosophy, and what I found is the basis, which is a term for the differential between the cash price, the Random Lengths price, the physical product, and the futures. That has a seasonality where it fluctuates above and below futures, and that seasonality has stayed pretty tried and true, honestly. The panic and the weird like flat price moves are basically impossible to predict. You could predict every lumber move for like 5 years and be the king, but if you miss the lumber move in 2021, you're broke. Like it just takes one move and you're done. And I think that the good thing of the admirable thing about our industry is everyone knows that lumber is very volatile. So there's just a lot of cash reserves, a lot of emergency fund, a lot of that got chewed into. But if you look across the landscape,
that rebound, I was out there boldly predicting, not on Twitter, but boldly predicting guys are going to start dropping like flies. Poorly managed trust companies, guys that are heavy lumber users and don't really sell the product lines like we do. But it bounced right, I think, before they were totally screwed. They had to be within 30, 60 days of being absolutely screwed. But they made it. I'm still shocked to some degree. that the companies just didn't absolutely go like, yep, my one guy made a $4 million move and we're dead. But it didn't happen. It really didn't.
I tweeted out the other day, like, there largely hasn't been any mega blowups of anyone in the supply chain. There's been some, but nothing that reverberated, and there's a bunch of AR that wasn't going to get collected. And
it shows everybody's making money. I mean, that's what it shows. You know what I mean? It's good time. Hey, I want to break this up just for a second, Stinson. We're having a great talk. We haven't allowed Adam to talk. Who's a huge talker, first of all. So this is extremely rare. It's the quietest I've ever heard him. But Adam, welcome to the conversation. Let's do a little back since we're way into it. But let's go backwards. Who are you? What do you do here? How long have you been doing it? And how do you kind of relate to this conversation?
Yeah, so
Thank you, Stinson. Sorry.
Yes.
We were rolling.
Adam Beck from Kewaskum, Joel graduate, my oldest sister.
Talk about a third wheel here, right? Like it's like
like
I got the cute girl at the bar and the other guy's just like twirling on his thumbs. Like what's happening here? Shit.
Well, Adam is by far has the most important position in your company. So the lumber buyer makes or breaks everything. So
the good news is I don't have to do it alone. So Albert is Joel's dad. Is him and I talk daily. I
just celebrated his 72nd birthday. Is not actively involved, but is still an advisor. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Joel kind of had this thought process of bringing me on through the pandemic, through the volatility. Came from manufacturing, purchasing, operational background, and didn't really know what we were getting into at the time, but really been able to learn a lot of the industry. And when you really think about it, it's a small world out there. Mike Clark, Ashley Buckholt, Mike Wisniewski from Materials Exchange, and then just working with all the mills. I'm talking to the same people that Albert.
Shout out to Mike Wisniewski. I've known that dude a long time. Went to college with his brother.
Oh, there you go.
What's up, Teddy?
The same people that I'm talking to at the mills, a lot of them talk about conversations they had with Albert 25 years ago. So it's pretty cool. We managed through the pandemic. I think we learned a lot from that. We are a heavy consumer of lumber. Some of those traditional buy practices still come into play, but there's also a lot of new things in the market that we need to adapt and take into consideration as we try to, manage lumber needs for pretty much the entire state.
And really, again, 25 years ago, having been a small 1 or 2 mom and pop independent operation, right? My dad, I think, had a lot of moxie and kind of acted to the mills bigger than he was. But now to actually be still very fringe compared to the mega monsters, to have some presence with the mills is kind of like beyond my wildest expectation, right? Like my dad was always like, dude, if we could just buy Canfor's direct, we were going to be somebody, right? So because we were working with the Stinson Deans, always growing up. My dad was grabbing a unit here and 2 units there, and shout out to Mike Harchie, working with Harchie of the world, buying 2 or 3 units. Shit, when we buy a full truck, I was working in the yard. I'd be like, dude, we got a full truck. Where are we going with this shit?
Boy.
Crazy, bro. My dad must have lost his mind. And
I mean, Adam, the ability to buy direct from the mills and be able to cultivate that, to me, it signals 2 things. You guys do a lot of volume and you pay your bills on time. And like that's the 2 things that are for sure if you're going to deal direct with the mills. And the one thing I've learned or realized is the mills don't know anything more than any of the rest of us. They kind of have this like aura about them that they collude and they dictate pricing and blah blah blah. But the reality is, I was talking to some higher up mill executive types, and they're on the golf course in May of 2021 telling me the market had another 20-30% upside in it. Like that was the top, that was it. And it's like, they're humble dudes, but they've all made a very huge bag of cash the past few years. But we're all in this together, and the mills don't have some kind of edge on the market that makes them predict the future.
No, but yet there's this psychological thing. I picked on that up with you too, right? The journalism side, whatever. One reason we hired Adam Beck, there's still this psychological, mental capacity that you have to almost think what the mega market's doing, nationally. But then also when you're dealing with a mill, like what is this guy actually trying to do, right? And then for people that are listening to this or watching this and don't understand what we're talking about, because I kind of alluded to it, it's an interesting thing. The mills, God produces a tree every day. They have a 100-year plan. The mill makes lumber every day, right? Now they can close the mill and they can adjust some of it, but they have output. Lumber yards have usage, but they can sit in the sidelines for a while. Mills the same way. They can sit in sidelines for a while, but eventually they got to dump it and sell it. And eventually the users of the product have to buy it, but not always in the same day.
Right.
So understanding that, and then where that plays on the economic level, has the mills actually produced, because no one actually knows, has the mills, going into the spring, no one knows, have the mills produced too much lumber for the quantity that's going to be used in our country? We think we know, we might know, but if we actually knew, right, as they always say, we wouldn't be on this podcast and you would be hiring somebody to run your big equipment, not going out and running it yourself.
But if you figured out, you might increase your Twitter followers.
If I figured out, I will not even be on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'll be in college. I'll be nowhere.
You should predict the winner of the NCAA tournament, and once the winner happens, you delete. Like, you predict everyone as the winner, right?
Right.
No one's paying attention to your Twitter, right?
Right.
You predict everyone the winner, and then once the winner happens, you go delete all your old tweets, and then keep the one winner, and then be like, I'm a genius. I can predict basketball markets and lumber markets, and then that's how you do your following.
I have a guy that I follow, I don't know his name, and he'll actually do that with the bracket. He'll take a screenshot of it and have it all crossed off by hand, like really shitty. And he's like, "This is my perfect bracket." And it's all just crossed out with the names, right? Which I think is pretty funny. I'm like, I give him credit for that. I'm like, yeah, there you go.
Cool.
Right.
Adam,
go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to get a feel for what Adam's seeing, hearing, thinking right now in the market, because
we're on the same page. I was just like, we got to get to the point. Like, what are we predicting here? Where's the global? Let's get the crystal ball out now.
Adam first.
Well, there's definitely, the curtailments and all the stuff that's happened. It's definitely not a bull market. I always question where the affordability is going to come into play. For us uniquely talking about strategies, we're growing. We're going to grow. We have a new component plant that's going to consume more lumber. So our needs are forecasted to grow, but when we look at the market in general, I'd really be curious what you see in the Sun Belt and some of the higher hotspots for housing. But it's definitely going to be regional based. I believe that. And
spit it out. You said a lot of words. You're a classic an analyst. You haven't said shit yet, for the record.
We're gonna have to get to a trading range that works for both sides. These levels don't work for the mills. We're gonna be at up 20% Q2 and tail end of Q2 into the fall.
You think lumber is going to be 20% higher?
I think we're going to see. We're going to have to get above the 500 trading mark.
Where's it trading now? For people that have no idea what you're talking about.
So we pretty much feel that the low is in for the year. The mills are kind of holding.
Was
what? 350, 360, 1,000.
And right now we're at where ish?
Right there.
We think we're at the low. You think we're at the low. We think second quarter it's gonna be. So we've done huge buys, right?
Yeah.
Truth be told.
Yes.
So we've done huge buys, basically almost again like my mom and dad used to, almost as deep as we could afford, handle, store, whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's this mismatch, Joel, of when it's produced and when it's needed, and it's been produced well before it's needed. So if you can be the bid. Adam can bid for a block or do some volume, but you can get really steep discounts and do really well if you have the wherewithal, the balance sheet to carry it, and the patience to not bail on your conviction.
And for us, actually storage, right? Because we're actually this isn't rolling. We're actually taking inventory of it. So there's a component of actually like we're going to store this shit, especially back in the day it wasn't a huge deal, but now it's like we're talking 50 cars, 100 cars, like that just doesn't store itself.
No.
So you think, Stinson? What do you think what's going on?
Yeah, I agree with Adam. I think it's hard to see it go lower because operationally for the mills, they're already losing money. Every stick of wood that they produce, they're losing money on. It's just a matter of
what is your break even for? We did this a lot during the pandemic, trying to predict their break even. What do you think their break even is?
I think it's in the mid 400s, which is a little bit lower than most. The reason mine is a little bit lower is because they've been operating at lower margins or lower prices for longer. That must mean they're making money a little at lower prices than we think. And number two, log prices reset in January significantly to match lower prices at the end of 2022. So their input costs are cheaper and currency is in their favor. So they're able to operate at a lower price. So I think mid 400s, and that kind of fluctuates with log prices, which is a whole, weird government algorithm up there in Canada.
Well, your business model, you should be buying, right?
Yeah, it's just how much pain we call it. Don't shoot, let them burn. Right? Like how much pain are they in? Can they withstand more pain? And then once they're at max pain, then I'll put my bid in. And I could
never catch a falling knife is another way we say it.
Yeah, and it's like
but the bounce is pretty painful. I always say, be careful.
The ricochet. And if I get greedy and I'm like, I'm going to bid at 300,
right.
100, 150 below their break even, and it never gets there, then I have no wood. And you got to kind of lay yourself in. So yeah, it's like you're buying with this expectation that there's not much downside, but then the other side of the coin is how much upside is there? If there's not that much upside, you might as well stay a little bit leaner and make someone else carry the lumber for you.
Right.
Storage and all the interest, insurance.
Right.
And my rule of thumb is it takes, with the new interest rates and the cost of storage at a reload, you guys can factor this yourselves internally, how much you're charging yourself for storage, theoretically, right? But anyway, $8 a month is that's my safe number. It's going to cost me $8 to carry this lumber for 30 days. They used to be $4. And I think, reload charges have gone up. The interest on your money over 30 days have gone up, blah, blah, blah. So just a safe number is $8 a month. So that's kind of my benchmark is if I'm buying lumber today, every month that I don't sell it, my break even has gone up $8. So you got to be able to forecast, is it going to be a 10% run in 90 days? Well, it's going to, if I buy the lumber at 500 delivered, Dallas or Atlanta, then it's going to cost me 525 is going to be my break even come time for the rally. And if it's going to be a $50 rally, I'm only actually making $25. So is it really worth taking a big position to make $25 1,000?
So I got a question for you.
We do percentages on that. We've always considered it. We probably got to bump it to 2%. We've always done 1% holding cost, but it's probably closer. You're right. We probably need to adjust that to 2%. Because I think we're probably a little bit behind the inflation.
Yeah, but we also invested in our reloads, and we don't rent the space that you probably obviously rent.
Well, we could rent it to somebody else. I was like, whatever. But keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, it's
you see, like in your market, my phone's never rang as much as it has the last 2 weeks.
That makes me laugh.
The companies that you go ahead have the wholesalers, they're not moving this stuff. I truly don't believe that they can turn that inventory. And people made a lot of money the last few years. When wood was 4 digits, you couldn't have enough of it and sell it fast enough. Now when it's bare bones, nobody wants it at 300. It's really mind-boggling to say the least. But how much of the wholesalers are they willing to cut down their own internal profits? I find value in the ones that are obviously willing to take $10 or $15 on a truck versus the 3-digit profits on truckloads aren't there.
Yeah, traders have been spoiled for 3 years. We're going to go back to, you got to really grind it out, dial for dollars, 1 or 2, or I should say 2 to 3% margins on your back-to-back wholesalers. They're calling you. And the thing about it, the wholesaler's position, the transit wholesaler, they don't really want to buy until they got you locked into a sell because they don't want to be holding the hot potato either, right? So they're just beating you up, and they've all been spoiled, all of us, me included. If you accidentally bought, the price, you're doubled. You're making 100% margins on stuff. If you held on to it for 45 days. and that's like way long gone. We're getting back to low single digit margins. And it's funny. I laugh because when wholesalers start calling you, they got nothing else to do. People aren't calling them, and they're trying to feel their way around the market, see if they can scrum up a $10 back to back. And I find, especially if you have accounts with the mills like you guys do, you can keep a wholesaler honest, because they can offer you something and you see the origination price and you can kind of back in, okay, this is what they're marking up. And I always tell, I'll buy from mills, I'll buy from wholesalers. It's just kind of the price is the price. But I'll always tell them, like, I don't mind you call me and I'll buy from you. But if I find out that you're making $50 on a markup, it's not like personal to me. I'm not offended. It just means I have to, it's worth it to me to put in the time to go find that for $50 cheaper. If you're making $10, it's like, it's not worth a bunch of time and resources and hiring a new somebody to go save $10 on a load, but it is for 50. And that typically, keeps them honest, you hope. And everyone in this business always thinks they're getting ripped off anyway. So it's nice to be able to back check. And you see,
well, I kind of look at it as, Four Cities Group, right? Big national wholesaler, really unique business model.
Right.
And the whole company's calling me from their different branches. I don't need to open up 10 different sub accounts, but what we really focus on now, just moving forward is to our goal is hospitality. If I'm going to go to a wholesaler and really need, 85% of our business is mill direct, but the wholesalers that we are going to work with when we need a friend in the market, when we need that wood available due to logistical issues, right? They can't be squeezed in a pot for 50,000, and they gotta do more than just be an order taker.
I'm gonna shift the conversation. That's my job. Way to end this part of the conversation is pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Never take advantage of a customer. That's just bottom line, right? Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Yep, you're gonna make it once, but we're never coming back, right? So good learning lesson there. I want to quick talk about this because we got to wrap up. We're already at that time. I think this is good knowledge because it took me a long time to believe this. You mentioned the logging company. Let's walk through it. Stinson, I think you're going to know these answers maybe even better than I do. Let's walk through the life cycle of a tree, okay? And the price point, because I think the price is, to me, it's wild what logs actually are worth, right? People think like lumber is really expensive, but let's walk through it, right? So a tree gets planted on the ground, and I just did this. In Wisconsin, they actually are bringing up migrant workers from Arkansas, and you pay $1.20 a planted tree. It's a tree with actually root system with plastic, like a biodegradable root system, and they just take a shovel and shove it in the ground. Full turnkey, I can buy that right now for $1.20. That's where the whole thing starts. It takes me 30 years as an investor, which we do through the Drexel Wildlife Organization. The ROI on that in 30 years is break even. If there's no wild, all things considered, if this tree grows and I have a normal growth, no, there's a huge risk. There's no water that year. I'm not irrigating these trees. That's a complete loss. But we're assuming there's going to be an 80% growth on that, right? Make a bunch of assumptions like we do in business. It takes me 30 years to break even. In 50 years, though, I can do like a ×3 on it, which is why nobody actually does logs. Because when you plant trees, it is normally for the next generation to reap the benefits. That's why you don't see a lot of tree planters. You see corn guys, right? So then I can make ×3 on that tree, on that investment, and more. That money after 50 years will keep giving back. 3 is probably way too low. So when you get a log, which is usually 24 inches round, right? About-ish, I think, Stinson. How much is a log worth? Like a 16-foot log, 24 inches wide. Literally dollar amount, $300?
Well, so I'm only going to be able to talk in dollars per thousand. So
well, you got to convert, man. We got to talk like English. You guys with these dollars per thousand. I literally got in the industry in '96 with an English degree. I've always hated this industry. Everyone's talking dollars per thousand. I'm buying wood per dollar. I'm like, dude, let's do the real thing.
Per
what
piece.
What does it cost in dollar? Please. Yeah. And they're like, no, that's not how it works. You got to learn to market. Yeah. Like, bullshit. Yeah. Just convert for me, dude. We're like talking Latin.
So, well,
English, bro.
I'm a little out of my depth on the tree. I kind of know what the input costs are. It depends on the region too.
Yeah, right. Let's make a couple assumptions, Stinson, right? I mean, okay. I think So let's go backwards, right? What is a finished stud we're selling in the yard for right now?
Finished stud in the yard, sell price, I do not know.
What?
Jesus Christ. $6?
Yeah.
I mean,
$6
get
bucks?
close. $6.
Yeah.
Jesus.
$6 a piece.
Well,
Yeah.
goes, I don't know what we're selling studs for. The
I gotta
podcast is over. So $6. You gotta get going. Let's keep moving here. $6 for a stud. We're selling in the yard. We'll just use that as an assumption, right?
Right.
So we're making on that $1, Adam.
Yeah.
We're making about $1 a stud. Probably generous, but we'll stay at that just because Adam seems to be panicking here. We're now at $5, and we bought that from Stinson. Stinson, you're not doing a lot of shit. You're sitting at your house clicking on keyboards. So you're making what, a quarter on that?
Yeah, I'm making 6%.
You're making 6%, so a quarter. That sounds about right. Right.
Yeah.
So we're at $6. Now we're at $5.75. No, we're at $5.
We're at $4.75.
We're at $4.75. You bought it from the mill, right?
Right. And the mill, the mill, six. So
Yeah, start with
the mill.
Oh yeah, we had truckers involved, right? So we already had it. We had rail from you. First, we got rail from the mill to you. They're making a percentage, and then from the trucking company here. So we're probably already at 4, and let's just call it 4.25 after it gets hauled from Canada to Wisconsin. Maybe 450. We'll go 450. We're at 450. What's the mill making?
Oh, 70% of that. And then the rest is input costs, I say that the mill is charging. You got me frazzled because I don't do per piece. This is foreign. It's all per 1,000 board feet.
That's what welcome to the podcast. I'd never not make somebody uncomfortable, I don't think. That's my
right.
thing.
Albert is really good at explaining this, Joe.
Right. So yeah, no, he is. I thought you guys would be better. I've been more prepared.
No,
That's
no.
not, so really we're at 4.25. The mill's probably buying that. Again, they're taking about 70%. So we're down to about $2. I'm trying to look how many 2x4s in a tree. Boy, you know that, Stinson, how many 2x4s in a tree?
No, like I said, I don't know.
I've been to the mills. Let's just call it 10 2x4 studs in a normal log. Okay.
Yeah.
You can kind of do that, right? So 10 studs in a log, we're at less than $3, right? We're at literally 30 cents that buyer's going to involve. We missed out on the logger has to make money, the trucking company from the logger to that. So no one's making shit on this is what my dad always says, right?
Yeah.
And then if you think about it crazy in our world, what's a popular drink down by you? Cocktail.
Oh man, Moscow Mule.
And how much does that cost
Oh,
at a
shit.
bar?
$7 to $8.
Right. Old fashioned years, maybe $6, Adam. You
Yeah.
drink more than me. About $6. You're paying the same, right? No one bitches about Moscow Mule prices or old fashioned prices, right?
Yeah.
But we sit here and everybody bitches about lumber pricing. Like, dude,
What?
who touched all that to get it to $6 is absolutely crazy, especially when you consider it took 50 years waiting in somebody's forest land to get to that point. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
A quarter of the cost in Wisconsin at current price levels is going to be freight.
Yeah, 25% of the raw product is freight, which is, again, unfathomable considering you're only paying $6 for a stud.
All right. Yeah. And then if freight goes up for all the reasons, it's a bigger chunk. And then if you live in Atlanta and you're buying lumber from Western Canada, it's a third of the cost.
Right. There's like 7 people that have to make a profit on that one stud.
That's right.
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, you got to actually cut it, log it. I mean, you got to take the branches off. Like, it's pretty crazy. You got to pull it.
Now imagine if you didn't buy direct from the mill, right? And you got, double wholesale. I've seen stuff triple wholesale. That's crazy. And having direct supply chain access is, it's great on price and all the things we're talking about here are in this segment, but also it helps with access and getting wood when you need it the most and all those things.
Thank you, Stinson. I did not pay for that ad, but to relate back to that for all you builders listening, right? The fact that Drexel buys mill direct is a huge advantage due to the builder, why you should be buying from Drexel. We protect you, we cover you, we secure you with good products from good mills, Because if you weren't buying mill direct, you were at the mercy of maybe the weakest mills, which means what? The shittiest lumber. This is not steel. There are different varieties and qualities of lumber. And again, this was an organic product made by God. It's not perfect. We didn't even get into cull lumber, which mills can cull up to 10% of that lumber out legally and ethically. We want to work with the mills that have very little cull lumber, just so everybody understands where this all comes from.
To clarify what you're saying, legally, you can have a number 2 stamp, but 10% of it is actually number 3 quality, and you could put it all in a bundle and ship it out, and it meets certification.
Yeah, we've had mills come down, I think only once, because my dad learned his lesson and said, "This lumber's crap. I want credit," which they will do. So they sent the mill rep down. He said, "Yeah, a lot of this stuff is junk. It's got too much wane, which means, it's twisted and junk, and it's just junk lumber." He's like, "It's not good lumber." But Albert, everything's within spec. It's within 10% tolerance. He said, "What do you want me to do with it?" "I don't know. You bought it. I'm going to go back to Ontario where I came from, but thank you." French Canadian. So anyways, we were at that point. This was really good. It went really, really quick. I loved it. We might actually have you on again sometime because you did a great job if you're willing. So to wrap this up, you got one big giant billboard. What does it say on it and why?
So my young trade assistant, he's in his mid-20s, introduced me to a
Wait a second. You got a trade assistant?
Yeah, I can't be doing podcasts all day if I don't have a trade assistant. Kind of how it works.
Yeah, I imagine like a little, again, not like sexist or racist or whatever, but I imagine like a little elf working for you or something.
Yeah, he's smaller than I am, but most people are. But he's not an elf. But he's a young, he's like learning the trade, and he's booking.
He's like really nerdy, like a 19-year-old. Yeah, anything you say, Mr. Stinson, really, yeah. Mr. Well, but whatever. Yeah. I'm sure he's a very dynamic individual. But that's
he's great.
Great, I'm sure
he's great. So he introduced me to a song by a rapper named YG, and the name of the song is "Scared Money Don't Make No Money," and that is my billboard. You got to have risk on. You can't be scared. Scared money doesn't make any money. You got to put positions on. You got to go big, and that's kind of how we built Deacon Lumber. So I thought that'd be a fun billboard to have out there.
Do you live your life that way?
I don't have to anymore, but I did.
No, not on money wise in life, right? Like I always take billboards philosophical. Like that can be very philosophical too, right?
Yeah,
honestly, just do it, right?
I'm not like hiking Mount Everest or doing like daring physical feats, and I'm pretty reserved and introverted in crowds. Honestly, I think it's pretty regulated to money. I don't think I always tell myself it's just money, so I don't mind risking it. So no, people who know me, I'm actually fairly reserved, but I will put some major lumber risk on and let it fly.
Yeah, that's great. And for me, that actually, I always kind of comment on people's billboards. To me, I think I try to live my life that way. Not in a sense where I'm like, again, doing Mount Everest or, being totally boisterous or anything like that. And again, I've lived my life that way. This guy's nickname is Showtime, right? Back in the day or still. But I do think I live that way. Drexel lives that way. Like it's not that big a deal. It's just money. Or it's just street cred. Like if it's in your heart and you want to do it, do it. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for a safety net. You got to go. Like we're only going around this planet a couple times,
That's right. When I was in college, about 100 pounds ago, I played quarterback at the University of Wyoming, and I was
Josh Allen. Did you take his job? Was that
Josh Allen is living the life I thought I was going to live. I'm like 10 years younger.
Everyone, all listening. All males. Hi, Josh.
No, hey, not all of us were quarterbacks at Wyoming, but
that's a small fraternity. Talk about niche. Quarterback for Wyoming. There's a niche.
That's right. And I was too conservative. I was too by the book. I was like, this is the way the play works. And when the defense does this, you do that. And that was the theory. The reality is things change. Defenses do things they're not supposed to. Your guy falls down. And I just wasn't able to adapt to that. But now, you can't be scared, and you got to deal with it as it comes by, and you need to take the shot when it's there, and don't take the check down. And like, it's kind of a,
so I can tell you have used that, whatever career you had at Wyoming. Can I YouTube you at all? Like, are you YouTubeable?
No, I mean, it was 2004, 5, and 6, and I didn't get much playing time. So,
Right. Well, but I mean, I think I can tell, and I think we've talked about this at podcast before. I can tell you use that fuel of if you call it failure, maybe it was an opportunity.
it was definitely failure.
You've used that failure to propel you into your real life career, right? I can tell.
Yeah, it used to be like a big mental issue that I had, kind of not.
It's in the back of your head and drives you, maybe even subconsciously. Some days I can tell.
Yeah, it definitely is a chip on the shoulder. No one cares about my college football career now, but it's like I had
Maybe
an opportunity.
it's Wyoming. Maybe no one ever did, but anyways.
No, come on. Don't be Josh Allen. He put us on the map. So
Kevin, so degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? How many phone calls are you away from Josh Allen? Are you like are you guys have like a group thread? Wyoming QB group thread?
yeah, we're on a Discord group.
Yeah, right. Reddit.
Probably 4. I bet like some coaches and players
Right.
over 10 years that kind of
Yeah.
are playing college football for 5 years now. So
Yeah.
there's 2 recruiting classes end to end between us. So maybe.
I thought maybe you'd have like I thought maybe you had a yearly like reunion of Wyoming quarterbacks and you saw them at like the barbecue.
Yeah. No, I definitely keep up with the guys that were in the quarterback room with me, but after that, all the coaching staff changes, there's not much to relate to.
Yeah, you lose the luster a little bit besides wearing the hoodie.
That's right.
That's a good logo. That's a good hoodie. Like that's a good thing.
Oh, it's awesome.
Was Christensen the head coach then?
Yes. No. So
Mark is just with these mic drops. Just I know who the Wyoming. He's just playing the card. Like he's just going, oh, I know Wyoming head coach.
Christensen came from the University of Missouri, and he replaced Joe Glenn, who was my coach.
Okay.
Marcus probably has your stats.
The big sky. The big sky.
No, I didn't see.
No.
You guys are in the big sky, right?
No, that's D1 AA. This is a Mountain West, so it's like.
Oh, I thought the big sky was D1.
Well, 1AA.
1 AA.
Oh shit! Whatever. Everything out west is just like foreign to me. I don't know. I couldn't stay up that late. Even in college, I couldn't watch all that shit at 10 o'clock at night. Ridiculous. Okay, well, thanks for having us. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I had fun,
Really
guys.
great.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
Yeah, let's go get it. Okay. Thanks, Stinson. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Peace.